it's Jess from Fighting Spirit Film Festival, and we are here today with our special guest. And please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Justin Wang Powell, the writer-director of Falling Sparrow.
Let me get into the questions. The first one is a bit tough. I run it past everyone, and most people seem to struggle with it. Let's see how you get on with it. Describe yourself in 3 fictional characters.
Trying to see how I need to pick characters that make me not come off like a sociopath, but also not like I think too highly of myself.
Just whatever comes into your head.
Okay, I guess I'll characters that I like who have qualities I'd like to see reflected in me. Li Mubai from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is definitely one of them. Kiryu Kazuma from the Yakuza series is another for sure, and Sun Wukong from Journey to the West.
Can you tell us about your martial arts background?
So I've been a martial artist my entire life. I started my journey with martial arts with Taekwondo when I was very young, but I found myself drawn towards weapon fighting. So I got into Western fencing and sword fighting and Kima as I grew older. Then 5 years ago, about now, I found myself drifting back into empty hand martial arts. Particularly towards Chinese martial arts. I started learning yin style Baguazhang or yin style 8 trigram palm, as well as wushu. That's what I've been doing for the past 5 years. And I consider myself a main practitioner of yin style Baguazhang.
What do you think makes a quintessential martial arts film?
I would say what makes a quintessential martial arts film, as opposed to just a film with martial arts in it, is that it is a film that explores what martial arts are, what a martial artist is, or what a nebulous martials, or it explores or deconstructs some aspect of what we would consider a martial spirit, I guess. And that goes back all the way back to the Peking opera, if you ask me.
Are there any misconceptions about martial arts cinema that you want to clear up?
The most common one seems to be that martial arts films are all about fight scenes and all about just seeing cool fight performances. And while it's something that we very much appreciate, I think that martial arts films are martial arts stories about martial heroes. That's what it means to me. It's still story first. It's just that the martial arts are a way of telling that story.
What sparked your interest in filmmaking?
I came to filmmaking through martial arts primarily, but when I was living in China growing up, I was first drawn to writing as an interest, and filmmaking came through the influence of friends as a way to sort of put my ambitions towards telling martial arts stories on screen, and also because I've always been interested in art, but I'm a terrible drawer in every sense of the word. So filmmaking felt like a way for me to be an artist without having to use my hands that suck at drawing.
Can you tell us about the first film you ever made?
Oh, geez. Well, the first film I ever made was probably a film I made in high school. It was a short sci-fi film that was by all merits awful. It encouraged me enough to know that filmmaking satisfied me in producing a story on film. So I still look back on that film very fondly. The first film that I would say I made as part of my professional career was a TV pilot I made back in my freshman year of college. It was a comedy film, and it was also the first time I actually did any sort of martial arts stuff on screen, which is why I kind of consider that the real start of my filmmaking career.
Is that something everybody can watch? Is it?
Yeah, that's actually available on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's the TV show Riot.
With your latest film, can you tell us how the story of Falling Sparrow came about? Can you talk to us about the writing process?
Falling Sparrow mostly came about as a way for me to both write a love letter to and also explore the wuxia genre, or the Chinese martial heroes genre. And I wanted to make something based on that, but I also knew I wanted to tell a story about a family, about the relationship between a mother and her daughter, and between a family that falls apart, a family that hates each other. The story of Falling Sparrow came out of a mix of that, my desire to make a story about family while also homaging all of the wuxia
Mm-hmm.
films that I grew up watching.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the writing process, it was very much like, to me, it was very much a balancing act of like, I didn't want it to just be a collection of fight scenes that I design, but also I wanted to like have some emotional resonance behind it. And that was, and I took that balance very literally by just like having like a very clear divide between the drama scenes and the action scenes.
How do you write? This is for my own brain, but
Right.
when you write the script, how do you write out the action sequences?
There's a lot of schools of thought on it. For a lot of people just write "they fight" and then they leave it until they're in production to figure out what that means.
Mm-hmm.
I like to have the general like beats of a fight scene planned
Mm-hmm.
out as part of the script, because it helps the screenplay be a complete story in its own right, especially if it's something that I myself am going to direct or fight direct later. It gives us more of an idea of like what kind of weapons are in play there, what kind of emotional beats are going to be happening throughout the fight. So for me, it's always been a balancing act of not having it so detailed that we'd have no room for creativity on set without changing the script significantly, while also writing it out enough so that when we are planning out and choreographing the fight scene, we know what our goalposts are and what we're trying to achieve.
That sounds really good, because my brain, I think I overthought it. I was like, how do you write this? If they say 1 page per minute, but I only have one line that says they fight, what do I do? And
oh yeah, because the thing is, like, fight scenes kind of like torpedo the whole idea of 1 page is 1 minute. It kind of like it almost ruins it, because like you could write 2-3 pages of action, but then when you film it all, it's like 30 seconds, because fight scenes happen so quickly. In the past, I've kind of thrown the 1 page 1 minute rule out the window when I write a fight scene, but it's something to try and keep in mind as you like write your second draft, third draft. Just be like, okay, let's try and make this a little bit more accurate to like page length, especially when you're like making a production draft for the rest of the team. Yeah, it's definitely like one of the harder things about writing action scenes, just like having any sense of like how long the scene's going to be.
Can you tell us how you found the cast and crew that you entrusted with your vision?
Right. So in terms of the cast, many of the cast were actually part of the Austin martial arts community, of which I'm a part of, and they very graciously trusted me, especially our stars, Hannah Ho, Cole Davis, who was also an actress in Austin at the time. Now she's in Los Angeles doing amazing things. They all trusted me because I really believed in the story, and they came to believe in it too. And those of them that were just martial artists first, who had never acted before, it was very encouraging for them to place their trust in me. You know, if they trusted me and just like and followed my directions, their performance would be good, even though they've never acted for film or for anything before. I decided to recruit from the martial arts community because I knew that I wanted a cast that were very skilled martial artists, that we didn't feel so that we could just let the fight scenes play out. We didn't have to cut around. We didn't have to overdo it in post-production. That I could trust them to, one, do things safely, and also do things that were very aesthetically pleasing and fulfill that sort of wuxia fantasy tone that we were going for. As for the crew, my longtime collaborator, Nikki Blacklock, our lead producer, and we've worked together for about 4 years now. And I knew I could trust her to put together a very competent professional production. And she trusted me because she didn't really know much about martial arts films or how to make a martial arts film. She trusted me with that. And I knew I could trust her to adapt and also put together a crew of some of the best people we know, including our wonderful DP, Eric Johnson. And also, we also relied a lot on the expertise of our consulting producer, Robert Zimmer Jr., who is a mentor of mine, who was very useful in the story department, and helping us make the story fit and emotionally resonant against like all of the action and kung fu.
Can you talk us through the set design for Falling Sparrow?
Our production designer, Jackson Lowen, was very key in this. In the first few drafts of the script, many of the locations were very different, and it was under his advisement that we changed the locations and reworked the story a little bit to fit with those locations, because he knew that they would look better and also that they would be more practical for filming purposes. And a lot of the production value that we got from these locations, like, you know, the chickens on the farm or the or the general decor of the martial arts studio, that was sort of just that was sort of there when we got there. All the production design team had to do was just sort of rearrange things and stage things so that we could put the production value on screen. So we got very lucky in that regard, but we also had a really great team that understood the vision of the film very well, and I really appreciated that.
Can you tell us about the action direction and the action sequences in Falling Sparrow?
Right. So as I said, most of the cast were themselves martial artists. So it was a very collaborative effort between me, our action choreographer, our primary action choreographer, Kaiser Tin Yu, and also the cast, who had many very, very talented martial artists, especially wushu athletes. Some of the choreography was done by the guy who played our villain, Jing. He did a good amount of the choreography. Kaiser did a good amount of the choreography as well as the spear student, Anthony Lim. He did a good amount of the choreography as well. I also helped out. I provided most of the stunt equipment and was the stunt coordinator on set. So it was a very collaborative effort where everyone was working in concert. And while that was like a difficulty in and of itself because we had to make sure there was not too many cooks in the kitchen, I think it gave the film's fight action scenes like a good amount of variety. I think you can kind of sense that there was a lot of different martial voices within the choreography, with the different weapons on display, and I feel like it was very creative. I'm definitely extremely proud of the action scenes in Falling Sparrow because of that.
Were there any challenges you faced while filming your short film?
Yes, insane challenges. A lot of them were location based because we only had the locations for a limited amount of time, and shooting action scenes takes a very, very long time. So that was a huge issue, trying to make the day every single day. And of course, working with a cast that was primarily made up of non-actors was also extremely difficult because I wasn't only asking them to perform martial arts in the film, I was also asking them to convey emotions. And we tried to account for this in the screenwriting during the writing process by having certain characters talk more than others, by having certain characters have personalities that were more easy to bring across for inexperienced actors. But as a director, that was the biggest challenge, working with non-actors, and some of whom didn't really speak English very well. So I was having to direct some people in Chinese, some people in English, many of them not being actors. And that's another reason why I really appreciate Nicole's work on the film, because she was probably the most senior actress in the cast. And so working with her, she was actually one of the easiest people to work with. And I really appreciated her understanding, her ability to work with all these actors who weren't really actors before they were in the film.
What was your favorite part about the final edit?
I'm very proud of how the action sequences turned out in the edit and how little work we actually had to do to make them work. I'm extremely proud of the score by our amazing composer, Li Xun, and the sound design by Segan Bretsky. I'm also extremely proud of that. And also I think that the ending came together extremely, extremely well, exactly how I'd always pictured it. There's too many things that I'm proud of about this film. I'm sorry, but if I had to pick one, I would say I was the most surprised at how much the sound design and the score added.